Hey, it's Coach Reese. Today I'm going to talk to you about parabolas. Okay, you're going to see some similarities to when we dealt with absolute value, and you talked about parabolas when you were in Algebra 1, but that's been 2 years because we've had geometry in between. Okay, so let me give you a little introduction to parabolas. Remember, your parabolas are going to be U-shaped. We will open upward, or we can open downward. Okay. Remember what we said? I don't know if you remember this in Algebra 1, but if we open up, that means our A value was positive. If we open downward, my A value is negative. All right, so my first problem, my A value is negative, so this is going to open downward. But another thing they taught you, see if you remember, that you're going to have a point right here at the lowest point or at the highest point. That point is going to be called your vertex, and we're going to show you how to find it. But we're also going to learn that this is going to be a minimum value, and if we open downward, this is going to be called a maximum value. And we'll talk about that in just a second when we work the problem. But a few things I wanted you to see if you remember from Algebra 1 is that we're going to be U-shaped. Our parabola is going to be U-shaped, and we're going to open up or open down, depending if it's positive or negative. Very similar to our absolute value. If it was positive, my V was opening up. If it was negative, my V was opening downward. Okay? All right, so I need to find what's called an axis of symmetry. Okay, the axis of symmetry, this is the first thing we're going to talk about. We have already determined that since this is a negative, we will open downward. Okay, my axis of symmetry, it is a line. It's going to be a line that passes through your vertex. The axis of symmetry is where you could fold the parabola over and it would match up perfectly. Okay. How can you do this? Well, I'm going to show you how to find it by hand, and then I'm going to show you how to use your calculator. Okay? All right, to find it, I gave you an equation. This is what we use to find our axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is a line, so you have to write it as an equation of a line. Since it goes up and down, it's going to cross the x-axis, so you write it as x equals, because it's going to touch the x-axis. Okay? So we would say x equals the opposite of b over 2 times a. Now in my equation, y equals negative x squared minus 12x minus 34. There's an invisible little 1 right here. And so when we label this, this is my a value. This is my B value. That is your C value. Do you remember that from Algebra 1? Okay. So we would say the opposite of B is a positive 12. Okay. Over 2 times A is negative 1. So this is going to give me x equals, this is going to give me 12 over negative 2, and you're going to find out that x equals a negative 6. My axis of symmetry is x equals negative 6. Please write it as an equation, x equals. Don't just put negative 6, because it's a line. I need the equation of the line, okay? Now, another thing you're going to discover, or you're going to remember, that we're going to get this x value from the location of our vertex. Our vertex is this point. It's this point in the middle of the parabola. And we know that the x value is negative 6. There's where we're going to get our axis of symmetry. It's always going to be the x value of the vertex. How do you find the y value? We can show you how to do it by hand, and then I'm going to show you how to use the calculator. Okay? But knowing that x equals a negative 6, I can substitute my x value, whoopsies. I can substitute my x value at -6, and I can substitute it right here for this x, and I can substitute it for this x. Let me show you how this is going to work. Oops, too much. There we go. Y equals, because we're looking for y, I want a negative x squared minus 12 times that same x minus 34. I need a negative 6 times -6 is a positive 36. That's going to end up being negative 36. Negative 12 times -6 is a positive 72 minus 34. When I combine here, negative 36 plus 72 is a positive 36 minus 34, and that gives us a 2. My y value equals 2. So if you're actually looking for the vertex, it's going to be -6, 2. And we can use that vertex for something else. So here's my vertex at -6, 2. Now let's see if we remember what we said. If my graph opens downward, we will have a maximum value. So over here, I would like you to circle, because you have a choice of min and max. We're going to circle max. It's going to be a maximum value. And here, I want the y value. The minimum or the maximum value will always be the number in the y spot. So this y will give you the minimum or the max, but your x value will get you the axis of symmetry. It'll help you. So once you find your vertex, you found some things that can help you. All right, so in this case, it is a maximum value of 2. So over here, you would say it's a maximum value of 2, because it is going to be the highest point of my graph. Okay? All right, let me erase some of this so you'll see what I'm talking about. So we're going to go to -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. There's my vertex. My graph's going to go down. Okay? But this is the highest point of my graph. It is the max value, and we want the max, and it's going to be equal to. Okay? Got it? The next thing we know is we want to know the X-intercept. Where does my graph touch the x-axis? That's what an X-intercept is. Okay? So when we go to our calculator, let me show you how we're going to do this. Okay? Here's my equation that we're going to put in. We want to make sure that we're going to do a graph. Hang on a second. Sometimes this happens. Okay? There we go. All right, so I need to do a graph. I type in my equation, negative x squared minus 12x minus 34. Enter. Okay, there's my graph. Now I'm going to show you how to find the graph, how to use the calculator to find a lot of these things. The first thing I want you to use is to find is the vertex. Excuse me, the vertex. Menu. I'm going to ask you to choose Analyze the Graph. There are more than one way to do this, but I'm going to go to Analyze Graph. Analyze the graph. We're going to look for our maximum value. And you see this broken line? I'm going to ask you to move it to the left of where your vertex is, somewhere over there. And it said lower bound, so we go to left, and now it says upper bound, so you're going to go to the right. There's your maximum value. Okay, so what you're going to do, let me go backwards. Control Escape. Control Escape. You're going to go Menu, Analyze. You're looking for the maximum. You're going to come over here and you're going to move your little pad and you're going to slide your finger across and you're going to move your broken line to the left. Lower bound means to the left of what you want it to be. So we want to be to the left of the vertex. Okay? And as soon as I moved it to the left and I click it, it jumps to upper bound. Lower means left, upper means right. Okay? And I moved it to the right and it gives me my maximum, which is also my vertex here. Got it? My vertex is at -6, 2. It is a max value of 2. All right? But now, how do you find the X-intercepts? Okay? Well, here's what the thing is. We're looking for X-intercepts, but you need to also understand that we're going to call them zeros. Those mean the exact same thing. If they talk about the X-intercepts, we're going to talk about the zeros, and it's where you touch the X-axis. Not all graphs will touch the X-axis. Sometimes you have a graph that goes like this, and it never touches the X-axis, and you would say none. Coach, there's none. It doesn't touch the X-axis. Okay? Later on, you're going to hear us, I'm just going to say this, you're going to hear us call these roots, okay, and solutions. And all 4 words are going to mean the same thing, but right now, you need to know that X-intercept and 0 means the same thing. And here's what we're going to do. Menu, Analyze. We're looking for a 0. It says lower bound. We said lower means left. So you're going to go to the left of where it touches the X-axis right here. And now it says upper. And we're going to go just to the other side. And there's one of my zeros right there. We'll go over here. But it touches more than one time, doesn't it? So we have to repeat the process. Menu, Analyze. We're looking for a 0. We're going to go to the left. We're going to go to the right. And there's our other 0. There's our other X-intercept. Okay? So on our paper, we're going to say -7.41, 0. It's an actual location on the graph. Please write it as an ordered pair. So -7.41, -4.59. -7.41, 0. -4.59, 0. There are our X-intercepts. Okay? Now, how do you find the Y-intercept? Finding the Y-intercept is probably one of the easiest things we can do, okay? Especially, and this is what we call standard form. This is called standard form. All we're going to do, y equals -x squared minus 12x minus 34. You may not remember this from Algebra 1, but to find the X-intercept, you put a 0 where the Y is. To find the Y-intercept, you put a 0 where the X is. So all we're going to do is we're going to substitute a 0 here and a 0 here. We're going to put a 0 where the X is. And that's going to tell me that Y equals 0 times 0 is 0. You can't have a -0, so it stays 0. -12 times 0 is 0. Minus 34. You're going to tell me that Y equals -34. So what we're saying, when you find the Y-intercept, is when my X value was 0, my Y value ended up to be -34. Long story short, it's always going to be the back number. When you're in standard form and you substitute the zeros, it's going to be whatever the back number is, no matter what. Okay? So there's my X-intercept. Okay? My domain. Okay? Let me erase this real quick. All of my graphs, just like absolute value. Absolute value, you had a V-shaped. We went forever to the left. We went forever to the right. Now, just because we're a curve, we're a U-shaped, we're still going to go all the way to the left to negative infinity. We're still going to go all the way to the right to positive infinity. My domain will always be all real numbers or negative infinity to positive infinity. So, my domain, you could tell me it is all real numbers. I would prefer you tell me it is negative infinity to positive infinity. We're going to use interval notation. Now, remember we were at negative 6, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. And we were going down. Okay? My range, the range is where things can change. Just like in the absolute value, the domain was always the same. It's the range that could change. Look how the range is. The range, the high point, what was the high point of my graph? Well, in this case, it's whatever the max or the min is. You're going to use this number to help you find the range. So, my range could tell, you're talking about your Y values. They're going downward, so we're getting smaller. You'd say my Y's are going to be less than or equal to 2. But I would prefer you to write it in interval notation. So you're going to tell me, Coach, we're down here at negative infinity. And the highest point that I'm going to go to is a positive 2 with a hard bracket. All right, let's try another one. Hopefully you'll understand when we do the second one. We're going to jump to problem number 5. So number 5 is going to look like this. Let me erase this. Let's see. All right, so what do you notice? I have a negative A value, so we're going to open down. So we're going to use the calculator, okay, right now. Okay, so we're going to put this in the calculator. The first thing we're going to do is I want you to find the vertex first, okay? We're going to find the vertex first. So when I go to my calculator, I'm going to say a new document. We're going to go to graphs, and I'm going to type in negative 2x squared minus 8x minus 17. Now before I put enter, I want you to notice something. It's only going to negative 6.67. This goes all the way to 10. So be careful, watch what happens. I'm going to hit enter. Oops. Enter. Control escape. All right, here we go. Home, new, that's okay. Everybody hits the wrong button every now and then. Graphs, negative 2x squared minus 8x minus 17, enter. Nothing shows up on my calculator screen. That means it's a little bit off on the window. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to go, this is how you fix it. Menu, window. We're going to zoom out. We're going to zoom out so we can see more. So we're going to zoom out, and we're going to hit enter. And it's down here, okay? But if you keep hitting enter, 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 my graph's going to get really small and really skinny. I just want to shift my window down. How do we do this? Well, if I'm going to try to go down here, my Y values are going to get lower. So watch what I'm going to do. Menu, window. We're going to go to my window settings. You need to learn how to do this. Window settings. We're going to change our Y minimum. We want to go lower. We want to go lower than -10. Okay? So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to delete this stuff. You can do this real quick with your finger, but I have to back this up. And I'm going to change mine to, I don't know, -20. Enter. Now I can see my graph. I'm going to find my vertex. This is going to be a maximum value because it's opening downward. Menu, analyze, maximum. You want to move your broken line to the left and then to the right, and there is my maximum value. Ooh. There's your maximum value. Got it? Now, what can you learn from your maximum value at -2, -9? We said that the axis of symmetry will always be this X value. I have just found my axis of symmetry. We also said that from that vertex, I know that my graph is going to be a maximum, and all I need is the Y value of your vertex, and that gives us our maximum value. The X-Intercepts, the Y-Intercepts, but we also said this minimum or this maximum is going to help us with our range. We know that the domain, no matter what, my domain is going to be all real numbers are -infinity to +infinity. My range is going to talk about my Y values. Look at your graph. It's going downward. My Y values are getting lesser. So we would say my Y's are going to be less than or equal to, what is that maximum number? They're all going to be less than -9. I'm down here at -9. My Y values are going to be less than -9. So way down here, I'm going to be at -infinity. But the high point is going to be at -9. We need to write it in interval notation. So we're going to say we're going to be at -infinity, and we're going to go up to a -9. That is my high point. So what are we going to find? We're going to find our X-intercepts and our Y-intercepts. Did you remember how easy it was to find the Y-intercept? The Y-intercept. We're going to put a 0 here, we're going to put a 0 here, but we're going to figure out that the Y-intercept is just the back number. So you're going to say, when I put a 0 where the X is, I'm going to end up with the -17 as my Y-intercept. It's that easy. But the only tricky part is you've got to find your X-intercepts. But look at our graph. Does my graph open downward? Will my graph ever touch the X-axis? No, it's opening downward, it's going downward. We're never going to touch the X-axis. So in this case, we're going to do what? We're going to say none. There are no X-intercepts. Okay? All right. Now, if you get stuck, ask questions. I'll help you. Okay? Don't panic. We'll have plenty of time to fix this. Don't freak out. But please try to see what you can get done. All right? Good luck.